Alright guys, so here's the first steps after making sure that I've picked out my rear axle. The first thing that I do is I take a set of brushes. I usually find the side with the most flashing and put that down. And a extremely dull X-Acto blade. I mean, this thing, I couldn't even try to cut myself. It's like a butter knife. Now, because it's dull, it makes a much wider crease. This is why people think that sometimes we use a different device to do this. This is exactly what we do. You can see that line is nice and wide there. So after we get done doing that, obviously, now you can X them. I put one line in them to start and see how, you know, sometimes, you know, if your brush tensioner, especially on some Aurora chassis, isn't in the center, sometimes it's just, you know, something that needs to be addressed, and you need to make one off center a little bit, especially if it doesn't want to hold. So we're going to slide the magnets in that you're going to build with. Maybe probably should have done that first. So we will get these back in. Obviously I want to keep the line on the brush straight with the tensioner. So yeah, it seems now that just from looking, I know it's hard to see on camera, but the back brush might be a hair lower than the front brush. That may or may not be something to be concerned about. I have a balanced armature here. It's just one that was left over from the Fray. That was my one arm left in my box. So you can tell the magnets are not tight. You do not want those magnets tight. If the magnets are tight, that can cause all kinds of problems. So what I will do, what I like to do, before I even bother peening anything, like I will peen this top plate on this motor hole a little bit. I just like to make sure that the motor is free moving up and down. You don't want it binding. I like to apply some oil up there, just a tiny little drop at the bottom. Just, you know, and I actually wipe it off like that. Now as I look at the bottom, one of these brushes rotated as it went in, so I will actually rotate it back, start it like that. I will put the clip on it like so. Now I will attempt to move my camera to my power supply, which is fun. So this is my power supply right here. It's at 20 volts, you know. Now what I'll do, try to get this stand to sit right. I have this for no pickup shoes. Little jig that Steve Nelson made me, so I don't need pickup shoes. You want to make sure that the motor sounds good. You push down, you can make the solder hit the bottom. You just want to make sure everything sounds, you know, pretty good before you even get started. But what I will say is, you know, you want to make sure that when you can just free move this armature. You don't want to feel resistance when you push down on it. You know, it automatically, you know, pushes it, you know, the brush tensioners push it back, it falls back in place, the magnets pull it back in place. If it's too tight, obviously you're going to have a bind. So, let's move this camera back in position over here. Honestly, just need a cameraman. But even still, sometimes they just get in the way. So now that I've picked out my motor, it sounds good with the brushes. Okay, so the first thing that I want to do, take the motor back out. Put it in the top plate. Now this is a very minute thing. I don't necessarily know. See how it spins nice and straight like that? That's what you want. It does have a little rock in it, so we're going to address that by peening this hole a little bit. So again, we take the peener, fits right in here like so. This will peen the top part. You still want to make sure you get that centered. This doesn't take very much because it's such a tight tolerance. You can peen the bottom as well, which will make it hold straighter. Because the tolerances are a little tighter in the WizzJet, it's not quite as pivotal. In an Aurora car, you had to. See now, you see how it doesn't spin as easily? So that's probably a little too tight. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take one of my front axles, I'm going to run it through there, spin it around a little bit. And now we're back to here. Stay with the camera. And see, we got a lot less jiggle. You can get rid of a little bit of that jiggle by peening the bottom side of this. And that's the way I would build an Aurora car, because it's so hard to tighten up the bottom hole. Because the bottom hole's tighter in a WizzJet, I don't find that to be as necessary. Because if for some reason you peen it at an off angle, then it creates a bind down there. And so next I will get the gears out, and we are going to start pressing the gears. I do have a brush break-in tool I have to figure out how to show on camera. But it's pretty simple. I may not actually have to show it on camera. I can just show you the tool, and it just helps. Obviously, you can mess anything up by overdoing it. So this is my brush break-in tool. It's just an old dead armature with a piece of sandpaper or micron paper on the bottom of the com, and it has no pinion gear. It's just got a retainer on there with just some stock crummy gears. So what I'll do is I'll put this in the chassis. Right, and then I will spin this using a Dremel on the back gear here, for, I don't know, 30 seconds or so. And it just breaks the brushes into their relative location. But actually first we should make sure that we get the brushes even tensioned. So the only way that you can actually even tension the brushes is by putting a pair of shoes on the car, and so we are going to do that next. And we're going to check the tension. You just want them even. Yeah, it's not perfect science for getting it perfect here. What we're going to do, we just want to get them even so the motor sounds the best that it can. And then I'll break the brushes in, and then we'll go forward from there. So I will be right back.